Hello JNUC! Greetings from Hamburg, Germany. My first in-person JNUC was back in 2014. I'm happy to contribute to this virtual JNUC along with many great fellow speakers. My name is Henry Stamerjohann. I'm a professional services engineer and a partner at Central Pro Services. As a company, we offer advice and professional services with a strong focus on research and development. We're dedicated integrator for Jamf. In today's session, we're showcasing some notable results from our work made available to a number of corporate clients. This talk focuses on Jamf Connect and how to accelerate identity. We see how the provision of identity certificates can be set up smoothly with the help of Jamf Connect. Let's start with a look at the agenda. The starting point begins from the perspective of a common corporate customer and the goals to be set. We look into certain technical elements that contribute to a solution and help to modernize the identity management, including the use of Jamf Connect. We will see a demonstration of a complete identity workflow. And finally, we summarize and draw conclusions from today's session. Let's look at the typical corporate setup. In environments where Mac devices coexist with Windows devices, the current Windows 10 user experience and Windows Hello sign-in capabilities seem to be ahead of the standard macOS capabilities. With improvements become apparent with the latest macOS versions on a fresh install, you find that a number of different macOS versions are currently deployed and used by the end users on a daily basis, and they are not likely to get replaced or updated immediately. Traditionally, Mac devices were bound to AD in many enterprise environments to integrate them with corporate policies and allow for single sign-on. When a user logs into a Mac, a valid Kerberos ticket will grant users access to internal resources. Oftentimes, a corporate network access is managed by a dedicated network access control solution, and it's common to see Windows PKI and the use of certificates in such a setup. The aim is to build a modern identity. The Macs will no longer bind to AD. The users should be able to authenticate from everywhere, even with a new corporate device that is set up remotely from home. Jamf Connect is used for the login process and Kerberos once the corporate network is available. Multi-factor authentication becomes available if needed. And it's important to keep the existing levels of network access control in place here. The idea is to help ease the burden on the IT help desk. Network access control is an approach to control access to corporate resources based on a user or a system authentication along with network security enforcement. For example, when you're on campus, a wired connection is authenticated by using a device certificate. And when you're connecting to corporate Wi-Fi, the user will authenticate with a user certificate. When you're off campus, you dial in with a VPN connection that authenticates with a user certificate and an extra password. This could be a third-party VPN client like Cisco AnyConnect, Palo Alto Global Protect, or something similar that is used here. The first level of device identity, trust, and authentication is often based on a device certificate. You can use the Jamf ADCS Connector for this, especially useful in a Jamf Cloud environment. The solution works with the existing in-house Windows PKI, but without exposing it to the outside world. It's a service designed to work with Jamf Pro. An alternative option would be to use a SCIP payload with a certificate service available for Jamf Pro and the client systems. This usually works well for third-party SaaS PKI solutions. The user authentication process is now based on Jamf Connect. It replaces the standard process for the macOS login window and enables a just-in-time user creation based on the identity provider. This helps eliminating support challenges for IT, especially in a global distributed workforce where many users work from home. Options for multi-factor authentications can be enforced right here, and Jamf Connect enables to run script that can be executed with root privileges. This can handle local user attributes as well. In combination, this is a powerful feature. But what about the user identity? We have learned a user certificate might be required to authenticate for a particular network access, or allow access to the corporate network via VPN. And remember, for non-experts, the experience of creating certificates can be very intimidating. They have to connect to a portal, follow certain steps, download and install a certificate or a payload. This is nothing for the average user. The aim is to organize the provision of the user certificate with minimal user interaction. And we have to make sure that we are working with properly signed information here, so that no one can impersonate anyone else. If possibly, the identity needs to be linked to the Wi-Fi configuration on a specific SSID. And existing user certificates often get appointed for several use cases, like 802.1x, VPN, or web access. And here comes Jamf Connect to the rescue. Jamf Connect can leverage the OpenID Connect protocol. The use of JSON Web Tokens provide a way to carry a set of claims or attributes in a secure fashion. Signed claims about the user are sent to Jamf Connect from the IDP, and the payload can't be forged. These claims are used for the just-in-time user provisioning. And in addition, Jamf Connect can pass them to a third-party application. Also note here that Jamf Connect allows for multi-user login that is gated always by the identity provider. And when combined, this can restore some important functionality, including providing certificates during the initial user provisioning. The JSON Web Token is an open standard, a compact and self-contained way for securely transmitting information between parties as a JSON object. The base64 encoding format is used for the JSON Web Token here. It's structured with a header, the payload that contains the user data, and a signature. And we will see some common token types, like an access token, an ID token, and a refresh token. The tokens are signed and returned as part of the OpenID Connect response. This can confirm the identity of the end user through the identity provider. The ID token payload provides signed claims about the user, and the signature is based on the identity provider and can be verified with the public keys available. The claims depend on the scopes used by Jamf Connect during the authentication process. The ID token provided claims propagate identity attributes in the profile scope. And we see common attributes, for example, for the family name, the given name, the name, a unique name, and the user principal name. Some ID tokens can also find more identity attributes for a user. For example, Azure AD provided ID tokens can contain the UUIDs of group the user is a member of. This is what you can see here. And having this information allows for extra interesting workflows. And here's an ID token variation coming from ADFS. The claims are coming from the in-house infrastructure that is federated to the cloud. We see a unique name and a UPN here. And it's good practice to keep the claims as standard as possible, but sometimes you need custom mappings. And in ADFS it is possible, and for example, you can create a custom mapping for the SAM account name. This can be used in Jamf Connect to set the desired local username. So let's get back to our plan of action. We want to exchange the claims against the user certificate. To do this, we need to configure Jamf Connect to pass us the ID token. And we have to write a tool to exchange the ID token for a user certificate. And with the ID token provided by Jamf Connect, we can use this for some success. We start with the Jamf Connect documentation to uncover some additional Jamf Connect Login features. First, we can find details about the OIDC token path settings. This will be set with the configuration provided via MDM, but we want to use the run script mechanism, which needs to be activated by the auth changer binary. In Jamf Pro, you can set up details with a custom profile. For example, we can set the file path to store a raw ID token into the file system, and we can also provide script arguments. As mentioned, it's mandatory to activate the run script mechanism, and for that, you want to provide a valid script or valid binary for the script path. Typically, the run script mechanism is triggered after full login based on the identity provider authentication. Some special script arguments can even replace variables extracted from the ID token. In our setup, we use the raw ID token. Jamf Connect already performed the verification, but the service issuing the certificate must verify the claims as well. So where are we now? We provided the device identity, for example, with a device certificate issued by the ADCS connector. And we get signed user claims from the identity provider with the ID token. And both now can be used to prove to a third party that a legitimate user is requesting a certificate on a fully managed device. To make identity certificate management, procurement, and deployment easier, we have created a custom solution. Meet IDent. IDent is not a certificate authority, but it can integrate well with an existing certificate authority and helps to procure signed certificates. It acts as an intermediary between certificate authorities and offers automations for the provisioning process. The first component is the IDent menu bar app. This runs only as a userland process. The IDent app helps to provide the user certificate. Continuous monitoring on the certificate validity is carried out in the background for all the certificates in scope. The IDent app also helps with the renewal process before the certificates expire. Typically, IDent runs with the Jamf Connect Login in a very tight handshake. It can also work in an autonomous mode where OpenID Connect protocol is used directly and an ID token is obtained in this way. In both cases, a user certificate is sent along to the endpoint and gets stored next to the private key. The payload returned to the Mac can also be used to configure Wi-Fi. The IDent Gateway is a complete PKI proxy service. It will validate the IDent app requests, and it will use the ID token claims and validate its signature. With an active request, the IDent Gateway can distribute either a SCAP payload or a CSR configuration. It takes advantage of unique challenges and can act as a full SCAP proxy service to aid the provision of device and user certificates. An IDent deployment as a proxy allows to fully insulate the existing PKI and keep it always private. All requests to the gateway are traceable and will be logged. Why do we specifically prefer SCAP or CSR config deployment here? Because unlike other workflows, the private key only remains on the device. Here we see a flow diagram to display an ADCS NDES setup with the IDent Gateway. We see that the Windows PKI can be only accessed in a private network. Both the Jamf Cloud instance and the Mac clients can only connect to the gateway. All session requests are validated. And the gateway here is a complete SCAP proxy in which all requests are logged centrally. And this way, the event can be dispatched to a CM system pretty easily. This is a slight variation of the former flow diagram. Instead of a Windows PKI, the gateway can establish a connection to various Cloud CA or PKI services. This could be DigiSign, AWS Private CA, or other CA services. And again, the request tracing allows to provide a log stream to a CM system if that is needed. So let's review our set goals. We set a strong user emphasis. The authentication happens with Jamf Connect Login. There's a frictionless identity certificate provisioning, and it's a full user-driven process. We ensure that no one can impersonate identity, and it's a full audited process gated by an identity provider. Now let's see a demo of a full identity workflow. We see the seamless user experience of Jamf Connect and the IDent provisioning a certificate ready for 802.1x EAP TLS authentication. And we take a behind-the-scenes look and see how the session information is stored in a Jamf extension attribute that is later used for easy event log tracing. We begin our demo with a Jamf Connect Login session. We log in here with the Azure user. We enter a password, and the OpenID Connect protocol is used in this process. The password verification is carried out with an OpenID Connect ROPG flow. Jamf Connect received the JSON web token, and now the just-in-time user creation can be performed here. The run script mechanism starts, and the ID token is saved for additional use. When logging in, the IDent app is started, connects to the gateway providing the signed ID token. The signature is validated and the user certificate is issued by a PKI and finally sent back to the Mac. Now, the full setup for the 802.1x access has already been completed. We can check the keychain for more details. We can see an ID pref is configured to associate the corporate SSID with the certificate. And we can find the certificate and the private key are both in the user's login keychain. The IDent handshake with Jamf Connect works with a minimal friction here, and this works also great for a multi-user setup if that is necessary. Next, we want to change the Wi-Fi to a corporate network and can see that we successfully will connect to the corporate Wi-Fi by using the 802.1x EAP TLS authentication, and we see it just works. Great. The second part shows how to reissue a certificate in the autonomous mode of our IDent app. We start here with using the certificate for a VPN connection. And we can see the user certificate is just assigned here. Now we're trying to connect and verify, and we can see the VPN connection can successfully established. Now we disconnect, and for demo purposes we will completely remove the certificate and its private key from the keychain. Let's do it. If there is an invalid or no user certificate present, the VPN or 802.1x EAP TLS connection is impossible. We just validate that here. IDent does a background check on the validity of a certificate and can identify on a problem. A notification will appear here, and we also indicate this problem in the menu bar and in the GUI. Next, we see how a user can get a new user certificate in a self-directed way simply through an attestation process. A built-in mechanism is used here from macOS, and the user identity check can be started. Once IDent receives an ID token from a successful OpenID Connect authentication, the same transaction here happens as seen before in the handshake with Jamf Connect. This is a pretty smooth way to help a user get a new certificate, but without the need of the IT help desk. Let's check if the certificate is working. It is linked to the VPN setting, and we can see again how a successful VPN connection can be made here. Let's try it out. And we see this just works. Finally, we want to check the connection to the corporate Wi-Fi. And we will see that the EAP TLS authentication with a user certificate also works. Let's try it out, and we can see it works. Great. IDent has updated the settings for this user whenever possible. Finally, let's take a quick look at the Jamf Pro integration of IDent. We can see the audit log in action. Jamf Pro. Here you can find the latest IDent session details and the user principal information from the ID token, which is stored in the extension attribute on the computer record. And you can use the session ID to look up the related events for this user transaction in the audit log. You will see success and failures, and this audit information can be sent to a CM system and stored for historic search. The core components used in this demo are Jamf Connect, the IDent App, the IDent Gateway, and a PKI. Our IDent solution comes with batteries included. It's a SCAP and PKI proxy service. Device certificates can be provided via MDM and the SCAP protocol, which complements our user certificate workflow as shown in the demo. This can fully replace the need for the ADCS connector. The Jamf API integration allows for powerful additions in the provisioning process. Conditional polstering and auditing is available for when certificates are issued by the PKI, and more custom automations are possible to build from here. For such setup, the IDent App, the IDent Gateway, a PKI, a cloud provider, and of course Jamf Connect is needed. We've covered in detail how you can simplify the identity certificate management and improve the access to 802.1x network, all in a single flow, linked to a Jamf Connect login experience. If we quickly review the common corporate goal here, the idea is to prove the user trust based on the identity. The device trust is based on the device identity and the device posture. And if both look good, a user can access corporate resources and services. The idea here is to propel the best mix of security and user experience. And you can use Jamf Connect to streamline the Mac authentication and identity management. Based on what we've presented, you can customize and develop your own solution. The IDP claims are full of information. Get the values from Jamf Connect or use the tokens directly. There are several ways that you can interact here. Connect to the Jamf API. Take advantage of cloud functions to trigger workflows. Of course, you can save some time and consider our solution. We want to instigate you to accelerate the identity management. Reveal and unlock additional features that you gain with Jamf Connect. Use the ID token and the claims from the identity provider in creative ways. Think about further ways of automation that will help your organizations and your user. Secure your Mac fleet with an identity provider, gated processes, and improved auditing. Just elevate the user provisioning to the next level. The IDent solution presented requires a professional services delivery. The integration takes place in a joint activity with regional partners. IDent allows for a site-wide usage, and we provide code-level support and can help with custom deployment and integration needs for larger organizations. Just contact us for details. Employ Jamf Connect in your user provisioning process. Get creative with the ID token and use that to accelerate the user experience. Encompass your existing Jamf Connect setup with new workflows and do support for certificate-based network access. Revise the multi-user scenario that includes user certificates in your deployment in a modern setup without the need for AD bind. Jamf Connect strikes a great balance between corporate security and user experience. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our talk and the content can inspire you to lay new foundations in your own setups to speed up identity in your organization. You can find additional links and resources under this URL. And please don't hesitate to contact us for help if you see fit, or if you like how we approach to work on creative solutions for common problems. Again, thank you. This was an intense and feature-loaded talk. I hope you could enjoy it. Now, for the rest of the JNUC, have fun and stay safe. Bye-bye.